I started tessconnellyco 7 months ago after working as a people operations manager at a marketing agency. And so I thought it might be helpful to give you a run through of how I set up my business and my operations and my processes and what has worked for me. Hey there, I'm Tess Connelly and I help businesses untangle their messy operations so they can operate with clarity and scale with confidence. Okay, so the first thing that I did when I set up my business was to set up 4 key areas of my tech stack because I immediately needed somewhere to house my thoughts, my ideas, my vision, my mission, my goals, and my tasks. So the first one I did was my digital workspace. This could be your project management software or your productivity software. I call it my digital workspace, and the one that I chose was Notion. Now, I'll explain a little bit more in depth in another video why I chose Notion, but basically the flexibility of Notion allows me to create exactly what I want in a digital workspace and use it as an all-in-one project management tool for everything from note-taking to documents, tasks, project management, client hub, brain dumps, contracts, goal setting, literally everything. And my second digital workspace that I chose is Google Drive. Now, the reason for this is that Notion is incredible, but it is still a new software and is still developing. And it's not the best for holding large files. It's doable, but it's not the best. So we use Google Drive for storing all of our media, so our photos, graphics, videos, any type of media content, and also any PDFs we have. Notion does have a PDF function, but again, it's not that great yet. But as soon as Notion is able to do all of these things in a good way, I will definitely be moving all of my workspace to Notion. I think it is the best thing to have everything in one spot as much as possible. The second area of my tech stack that I set up was my website. Obviously, I needed a place to show my clients how they can contact me and where to find me. So for my website, I chose Wix. Now, I've been on Wix for about 10 years. I'm a pretty big fan of Wix. I actually started out on WordPress a few years before Wix and used it for a few years, but it was very complicated and got very complex. Its user interface is not very easy to use. It's quite clunky, and I just found it really hard to work with. Wix, on the other hand, is super easy to use. It is drag and drop. It's got a great user interface and it's really easy to build, again, whatever you want to build with the flexibility that Wix offers. Just on a side note, I have also used Webflow, and I will say this. Wix and Squarespace are definitely more beginner friendly. Webflow can look much more professional or polished than something like Wix. It doesn't require any plugins like WordPress does, so it won't cause any plugin issues, and is so much more advanced than Wix is in its customization. It also has inbuilt hosting, which means that you don't actually have to go to another site like GoDaddy to host. It's got better SEO tools and just a bunch of other really great features. But it definitely has a steeper learning curve and is slightly more expensive. Okay, the next part of my tech stack, number 3, is email. And I chose Gmail for several reasons. I already use Gmail personally, and I have used it since I got my very first email as a kid, so I'm used to it. I also use Google Drive and Google Meets, and my Wix website is built in to link up with Google Workspace. So that all made sense for me to use Gmail. I will say this, Notion have just announced that they are about to release Notion Mail, which is revolutionary. I think this is one of their best updates yet. So it will basically be like another app. So you have Notion and you have Notion Calendar. Notion Mail will be a separate app that obviously links up to all of them. And I believe it will have kind of the same minimalist feel that Notion has, but will also be a bit of a different take on email. So as soon as that comes out, I will definitely be trying it out and potentially making the switch over from Gmail to Notion Mail. And the fourth thing that I set up was my calendar, and I chose Notion Calendar. So if you don't know, Notion have a separate app called Notion Calendar. Now, I hated Google Calendar. It just felt super clunky. And I used to use Apple Calendar. But Notion Calendar feels like Apple Calendar but with so many extra added elements that make it so much more worth it. So firstly, it links up to your Notion workspace, and you can add any calendar or timeline databases into your Notion calendar, which basically means that you can add tasks, projects, client project deadlines, content or marketing calendars, when people are requesting or on leave, employee birthdays, literally anything that you can put in a timeline or a calendar, you can now put into your Notion calendar. And you can toggle on and off the databases and views. So if I am in HR, I can have my personal calendar, which I'll get to in a sec, my work calendar with all of my meetings, plus my tasks, employee birthdays, when people have requested or are on leave, etc., all in the same calendar, but toggled on and off views so that it doesn't get too complex or confusing. Secondly, Notion Calendar currently links to Google Calendar. Now, I know I said I don't use Google Calendar. I don't, but I do have a Google Calendar account, which obviously comes with Google Workspace or if you have Gmail. And here's why. As long as my Google Cal and my Notion Cal are connected, I can add in personal events and meetings that are linked to Google Meets or Zoom that aren't necessarily in my Notion workspace, but I do want them on my calendar. And again, I can toggle on and off the views. Thirdly, you can schedule a meeting straight from Notion calendar with meeting notes or documents from Notion attached. And it also acts like a Calendly link where you can give your clients or whoever you want to meet with a link, pick your available dates or time slots, and let them choose when they want to meet with you. You can also add in other people's calendars on here. So for example, if you are working as a PA or an EA and you need to see your boss's calendar, you can also add in their calendar on here and they can choose to show you the amount of detail that they want. You can also add in time zones, and there is a sneaky little Notion bar up here which shows you all of your upcoming meetings or events for the day, and you can join Google Meets or Zoom link straight from that Notion bar. And one more great feature that Notion Calendar has is that if you jump into your Notion workspace, I'm going to quickly show you down here, and we are going to create a board view of a database. Say this is going to be our tasks database, so let's make it example tasks. And then down here, I'm going to create a linked view of the same database, so example tasks. Beautiful. And this we're going to create as a calendar. Going to hide that view. Now let's just say we add in a task in here. This is an example task. We can now see all of our tasks here, and we can drag and drop them into our calendar down here. Now this has been a little bit funny and is not working for me. So what I will do is make this full width, and this seems to work a little bit better. There we go. So I can drag and drop that into there. And now once this calendar is linked up to my Notion calendar, I will be able to see that in the all day view on Saturday or Sunday, the 29th of January. And then I can drag and drop it into my Notion calendar workspace. So that way I can schedule my tasks for each day into specific time slots. Okay, so that is where I started when I started out my business. Now, one of the next major things that I did that I think is extremely important, especially as an operations manager, was to write out my SOPs. So SOPs are standard operating procedures. And these are basically a step-by-step process of how you do things in your business. So for example, what is our process for employee onboarding at tessconnellyco? Or what is our process for graphic design or content creation? Or what's our process for budgeting? You get the point. Now, if you don't have your processes documented yet, you likely have a process, you probably just don't know what it is. Or it's likely not going to be super effective. And the reason is when you write down a process or you map it out on a process map and you can look at that process objectively, you can see exactly what is going on, where you're being inconsistent, what things you're kind of winging but don't really realize, where you could be more efficient, where you could automate, etc. It's like shedding light on all of your flaws. Seriously though, SOPs are actually super helpful. So I started out by creating a database in Notion to house all of my SOPs. Now, don't freak out. I know these are a lot, but basically I jumped onto ChatGPT and put in my type of business, and I asked it to give me a list of all the different SOPs that I would need. Now, as always with SOP, you have to kind of go back and refine your questions and clarify what it's giving you. But with a bit of back and forth, I managed to come up with a list of SOPs. Most of these SOPs are relevant to most businesses, but some are more specific to my business. So then I created a page for each SOP, and I asked ChatGPT to give me a bunch of questions that would help me to gain some clarity on that particular process in my business. So as you can see here, these are the questions that ChatGPT gave back to me. So then what I did is I went through and just brain dumped my answers to each of these questions. Now, I did make it sound all fancy. I literally just wrote whatever came to mind. And if I didn't know the answer, I literally wrote, "I'm not sure, any suggestions?" I copied and pasted that back into ChatGPT and asked it to write me a formal SOP. So that was a great start, a great template, but then it needed some refining and also some personalization for my own business. So then I jumped onto Lucidchart. Now, Lucidchart is a visualization software, but you can use Figma or Miro or Whimsical or any other software that kind of allows you to draw mind maps and diagram for your business. So then I took the process that ChatGPT gave me and I began to recreate that as a process map or as a visual mind map on Lucidchart. And this helps me to identify any gaps, identify any missing information, any opportunities for automation, or just different ways to go about the process. And then I would continue to refine these processes. So I started out with this huge goal to get all of my SOPs locked in and nailed by December 2024. Turns out I was a little bit too ambitious. So having that huge list of SOPs totally helped, because I know that in the future, when I have time and when I have time blocks to work on my processes, I know exactly what I need to work on. But I realized I need to just simply start with what is most important to me right now. Also, what is my focus in my business right now? So for me, my main focus right now is my content creation, and my main bottleneck in my business is the way that I brain dump. So I constantly have thoughts and ideas that I need to quickly dump somewhere within my workspace. And I used to use Apple Notes because it is quick and easy. But everything else in my business is stored in Notion. And so it wasn't really helpful for me to put my brain dumps in Apple Notes because they'd kind of just get lost and I knew I wouldn't really come back to them. So I needed to simulate something like Apple Notes in my Notion workspace. A blank page where I could quickly just drop in my thoughts, but then be able to find them again and move them into actionable tasks for later on. So I developed this little brain dump button. It's still not what I want it to be yet, but it's definitely better than it was. And also my main focus is on content creation right now, and unfortunately I can't do everything at once. But basically my brain dump button opens up this little Notion form. I write my note, I hit the brain dump button, and I click submit. And then I jump into the back of my forms database, ideally once a week, and then go through and sort out each idea from there. I also just added a shortcut to my brain dump page on my phone so that I can quickly open it up just as easily as I did with Apple Notes. So there you go. Those are some of the first things that I did when I set up tessconnellyco 7 months ago. Hopefully you found some of that helpful or gave you some fresh ideas or inspiration for how you can set up your business operations effectively and efficiently. Enjoy your day. We'll see you soon.